Kenko Hacks, a podcast about wellness, health, and biohacking.
こんにちは。This is Eva at Kenko Hacks. Today we are going to discuss topics near and dear to my heart rate variability, stress, and mental wellness. And I cannot think of a better person to discuss them with than today's guest, Rohan Dixit. Rohan is cognitive neuroscientist and previously worked at Harvard, MIT, MGH Martino Center, as well as Stanford University. He is the founder and CEO of Lief Therapeutics that makes a continuous HRV monitoring wearable with biofeedback. Rohan, thank you very much for being here with us today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Eva.
I have been wearing Lief for the last 9 months or so, and it is the single most powerful tool I have tried to gain awareness of my HRV and improve it. So I was pretty much already in love with Lief before I started researching about you and the Lief Therapeutics for this interview. And I must say that as I learned more about stories behind the creation of Lief, including your discovery of mindfulness as a teenager and your trip to the Himalayan mountains to research the brains of monks, I became even bigger fan. I think they are such beautiful and very interesting stories. Can you please share your background in mindfulness and neuroscience and how they paved the ground for the creation of Lief Therapeutics?
Of course. So as you said, I discovered mindfulness at a pretty early age as a teenager because I was feeling anxiety and depression myself. And mindfulness made a big impact. It changed my life. It probably saved my life. And I realized something must have changed in my brain. And so I became a neuroscientist to study that. And I went to labs where they were looking at meditation, mindfulness, altered states of consciousness. What's happening in our brain during these attentional practices? Why do they have these effects on our mind and our body? What are the mechanisms, the science of it? Because I think that it's so fascinating looking at ancient techniques, often from the East, and marrying them with technology that has often come from the West, and seeing what is the kind of pairing that we can create from these two different perspectives to create a better whole. And that was so exciting to me. And so we did a lot of work there at Harvard and Stanford, looking at what these changes are, showing that people who have just started meditating can change their brain in 8 weeks, and also longer term meditators. And I got to a point where we had published a lot of papers and popular press articles too, and I felt that I was making a difference. And ever since I was a kid, I had wanted to share this with more people, to help more people. And so that felt really good. What didn't feel so good was that there's a difference between studying something and living it and experiencing it. And I just still felt stressed. I looked at the people coming into the lab, these long-term monks and meditators we were recording from. They had these peaceful faces, and you could feel that they were just very calm, and I wanted that for myself. So I quit the lab. I bought a one-way ticket to the Himalayan mountains, put a bunch of sensors in my backpack, brainwave sensors, heartbeat sensors, and left to go find the monks and to learn how to meditate, and to see if I could create some technology, some tool that might make it a little easier. And so that's how I ended up in the Himalayas. And yeah, it was an adventure, and I'm so grateful to the people I met there.
Wow, such an adventure. And I have seen those pictures of monks in some of your talks, previous talks. I think it was at Inc. in Singapore, for example. And as you say, they are so happy. They look so peaceful. They look so content. I was amazed to look at some of those pictures of monks meditating and how peaceful they look like. You almost become jealous of how peaceful, what kind of inner peace they can have inside all the time. It's amazing. They really look amazing. I think those pictures are really great. Yeah, great pictures to see.
Absolutely, it is amazing, and also what's so great is that they show you that you can do it too.
Yes. So as neuroscientist, you are focusing on the brain at first in order to help people to relieve conditions like stress and anxiety and to improve mental health in general. Your first company, BrainBot, were exactly doing that, helping people to get back to the state of mindfulness by measuring the brain. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Why did your focus shift from the brain to the heart, particularly heart rate variability?
Yeah. So I think as a former neuroscientist, we have a arrogance, maybe not. It's not the right word, but
Confidence, maybe.
yes, strong confidence that everything interesting about the mind is located between the ears, is in your head. That everything about the emotional state of the human and cognition is in the brain, but that is absolutely not the case. It turns out, and I only discovered that after leaving academia and continuing research. So, with BrainBot, we had a EEG device where we essentially were tracking brainwaves associated with meditation. And during somebody's meditation and mindfulness practice, if their mind would wander, an automated voice would come in from our partner, Tara Brock, who is a meditation instructor on the East Coast here in the United States. And her voice would say something like, "Come back to your breath," or "Thinking is natural." And so it was this automated kind of meditation assistant.
Yes.
And that was really great. We ended up integrating that into chronic pain company that's now helping tens of thousands of chronic pain patients every month learn how to use mindfulness to help their chronic pain. But to me, the reason that I grew to be a little bit frustrated with the EEG measuring brainwave activity was that you can only measure it while you are sitting still, essentially.
Hmm.
And truly, even having your eyes closed is sort of the only way you can get good signal. Blinking can
Interesting.
yeah. And so I started looking for, I was thinking, gosh, continuous feedback. We need to be able to measure our body state all the time and have real-time feedback, not when I'm sitting on my meditation cushion in the morning. That is not a time when the world is creating the most pressure and stress for me. The real solution would be to have a feedback tool in the moment when you need it the most, right, throughout the day. So that led.
So the real solution for the real life, and you ended up with heart rate variability. I have a very basic question. Why heart rate variability? Is it better? Is it superior measure for the state of mindfulness or mental state than let's say just a simple heart rate?
It is. So heart rate is um, something that can be high or low and change from person to person, but the heart rate variability is a key index of your autonomic nervous system, and that tells you a lot more information than your heart rate ever could.
Right. Um, Many of the listeners have actually probably have a device at home that measures HRV. However, unlike, let's say, the resting heart rate, heart rate variability is not a direct measurement of aspect of our physique, right? It's a calculated value, and there are many ways to calculate it. So as such, there's a little bit more complexity to it to understand exactly what it is. Can we briefly discuss what HRV is and how it is measured?
So HRV, or heart rate variability, is the variation were the changes in timing between one heartbeat and the next. So you can think about your heart rate as being something, say it's 60 beats a minute. People often think of, your heart rate being fairly constant. But actually, if your heart rate is constantly 60 beats per minute, say, never changing, that's a sign of extremely ill health. You should maybe see a doctor immediately. That's a really, really dangerous indicator. Variability in your heart. For example, having one beat at 55 and the next beat at 65, the next one at 62, etc. That variation is very, very good, and that's an index of your autonomic nervous system, your body's nervous system, which is intimately involved in your emotional state, and is kind of the mind-body connection as well. And so, heart rate variability basically measures the variations in your heart rate, which is a healthy thing, and you want to encourage more of that.
Yeah. Rather than having a single standardized way to calculate the HRV, there are many. We have many, such as SDNN, RMSSD, and many, many more. And I believe that the one Lief uses is RMSSD. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Today we have many wearables that measure the HRV. Wristbands or a ring form, like Aura Ring or chest straps as well. Can HRV measured equally accurately, regardless of which part of the body we have the device on?
So initially, when we were creating the Lief, we knew that we wanted to measure heart rate variability. And we wanted to find the easiest way to measure it, the signal accurately as possible. So we built sensors. If you think about, for example, the Apple Watch, the Fitbit, Whoop, even the Aura, they all use an optical green light sensor.
Yes.
And that sensor is really great. It's very cheap. It is easy to apply. You can put it into a wristband. So there's a lot of advantages to that sensor, and that's where we started, trying to measure HRV accurately at all locations of the body: the wrist, the ear, under the sole of the foot. We really did a lot of experimentation. What we found was that the gold standard for clinical HRV is to measure the biomarker from an electrocardiogram, from an ECG device.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because the signal quality is much, much higher. It's sort of a fundamental limitation of the technology, the optical sensor itself, that the signal is just a little fuzzier. It's a little smoother. It's hard to tell exactly when each heartbeat is. And we're talking about variations from one heartbeat to the next, right? So that time is super critical. And so that is why we ended up having to develop an EKG device to actually measure HRV accurately.
Right. So there is a fundamental difference between many of those wearables, like let's say Apple Watch or Aura Ring, which uses optical sensor or optical sensor, right? But to measure things like HRV, and the Lief, which is AKG based, I believe clinical level HRV measurement.
Right. So we have a clinical device, an FDA device, as well as a consumer device. And I should say, like, the more people that are measuring HRV in whatever ways, I think the better, because it is an incredibly important biomarker. And if the barrier to entry is low, then I think people are getting more important information about their health, which ultimately is a really great thing. And obviously the EKG is, if you want to get the most accurate measurement, that's what you will do. Particularly if you're moving around it during the day. But for example, like the Aura takes a really good approach to this, where they try to reduce the noise by only measuring, or by measuring you at night, so you're not moving. It's dark, so there's not too much light interference, and so there's things you can do to try to get good signals at certain times of the day. Right,
that's super interesting. And the HRV itself is super interesting, interesting biomarker because of everything you just said. It's easy to measure with available technologies, and it seems to give a great picture of someone's mental status. The opposite also seems to be true. Measuring when your HRV is improved. You feel less stressed, you feel less anxious, more relaxed, and generally in better mental capacity. Can you please tell us what you have learned so far about the HRV's role, both as biomarker and also intervention to our mental health?
Yeah, so it is such a fascinating field, and HRV is an incredibly exciting biomarker for mental health in particular.
Yes.
It's been 100 years that mental health has been looking for biomarkers, to try to understand how to optimize ourselves from feeling anxious and depressed to being normal, but also from going from normal to being hypernormal, to being better than our average or our baseline. And I think it provides this continuum as a biomarker for taking us from wherever we are and teaching us how to incrementally improve with data to get into a better place mentally and also physically, right? Because the mind and the body are connected.
That's super interesting about this HRV. But now let's just discuss about Lief, the wearable. I've been totally in love for the last 9 months. I love Lief for so many reasons. It's elegantly simple. It's very zen. I think coming from Japan, really focusing on the essentials. So the HRV, it has no other, or it has actually heart rate itself, but it's very elegant and simple. It's very zen. It's very smart. It's very intelligent, so it continuously adjusts to customizes the data, the zones it shows on the app according to your HRV needs. And Leaf is also very actionable. This is probably the most best thing about Leaf, I think. It combines continuous HRV monitoring with biofeedback, which I believe still today is quite unique about Leaf. I haven't been able to find any other wearable like this, and it does it through vibration, and it manages to do all of this in a very non-invasive way. So, can you please share with us, listeners, what your vision and goals are with Lief Therapeutics?
Of course. So you mentioned that Leaf is a measurement tool for HRV as a biomarker, but it is also a feedback tool to help
Yes.
you train HRV in the moment. And I think that as biohackers, our community is now quite aware of HRV as an important thing to track, and it is becoming more common in the mainstream as well over the next few years. I think what is still not fully understood, and this is where I'm really excited with Leaf and also just in general in the field of biohacking and wellness and optimization and mental health, is that you can improve these biomarkers in real time through training, just like you go to a gym. The metaphor of lifting weights or running on the treadmill every day and incrementally improving that's very clear to people. People know that you can get a better physique or a healthier body by practice and data, right, and feedback.
Yeah.
People don't know that you can do that with something as intimate to your body as your heart and
Right.
your emotional state. And so biofeedback for I always tell this story because sometimes people don't about biofeedback, and I think it's one of the coolest technologies in the world. So if you'll indulge me with a short.
Yes, please.
The first biofeedback experiments of this type of technology were in the 70s. And as you know, usually college professors tend to experiment on college students. They are available and they are relatively cheap as subjects. And so they took these college students and they put them into two groups. And they said, okay, well, group A, we want you to raise the temperature of your fingertip. And group B, we want you to lower the temperature of your fingertip, which is impossible.
No, it doesn't seem possible.
It's not something we can do, right? We have no conscious control over our fingertip temperature. But if you have a highly accurate measurement, if you take a digital thermometer, you clip it to the student's finger, and they can see in real time the little micro degree changes, 0.1, 0.01 changes up and down, these students learn to change the temperature of their fingertip on demand, up or down, just by this feedback, accurate feedback. So that's biofeedback. It's almost a superpower that allows you to control things about your body that you thought were completely unconscious before. And
And probably those students couldn't tell, right, how they did it. They became able to do that, but didn't know how.
it's a super interesting phenomena from a neuroscientific perspective too. And there are even some questions still about how it's happening in the brain. It is
Yeah,
and it is possible.
it is absolutely fascinating. So, Lief is biofeedback definitely is, I think, one of the things which makes Lief uniquely valuable for many people trying to improve their heart rate variability through biofeedback. And I was interested in the choice of the biofeedback method. So it's vibration. It vibrates gently, so nobody would actually know, but only you can feel the vibration when your heart rate variability is too low or when you tap on the device. So you can self-induce the breathing exercise, which is a vibration based feedback, biofeedback by yourself as well. Why did you choose vibration? Was there any, because the background to me, for me to asking this question is, I am not sure if you're aware of technology called TENS. TENS stands for transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. And there's a massaging device like that. Many of them are available quite cheap to buy at Amazon, for example. And I have one at home because it feels nice. And what I noticed was when I have our TENS device on me, so it vibrates quite strongly, and our device goes up to 25,000 hertz. So it's quite intense, quite high intensity. Then my heart rate variability goes up quite significantly. And I have not been able to figure out if it's a real improvement because of vibration, which feels nice, or if it's actually a signal error, maybe because the TENS device is also, it looks like this, it's also an electrical device. Do you know if vibration, is the vibrations healing or heart rate variability improving effects one of the reasons you chose it for your device, or is it some coincidence? Is vibration having an effect on heart rate variability?
That's a really interesting question. And I think that there are some very limited studies looking at vibration and their effect on the body. It's not a field that I think we understand a lot about yet. But the way that the Lief uses vibration is really just as a feedback tool, as information. So, you think about having a biofeedback device, right? And we talked about how with the early biofeedback experiments, people use their fingertip and raise or lower the temperature of their fingertip with those thermometers, and that's great. I don't know exactly what you could do with that. Maybe you could raise the temperature of a glass of water a little bit or something. But I think, given a biomarker as important as HRV, having control of your heart, that's really, really, really helpful. You can just imagine as your heart rate is changing in response to stressful environments around you, et cetera. And so the question becomes, how do you give yourself real-time feedback all the time? And like learning anything, the more feedback you get, the more practice you have, the more real time that information is presented to you, the faster you learn. It's a learning cycle problem. And so all biofeedback before the Lief and HRV biofeedback before the Lief was done through visual means. So people would look at a computer screen or an app, or would listen to a tone. The issue with that is that it takes you out of the moment. And so you can't use it discreetly in the moments you might need it. You can't say, okay, well, I'm having a stressful conversation. Stop. Let me take out my phone. Let me look at my phone. This is not the real world, right? And so,
Right.
how can you communicate in real time to somebody? discretely, that's vibration. So what we figured out with the Lief is how to do biofeedback, HRV biofeedback discretely through this almost invisible communication channel.
Yes, that's exactly my personal experience with Lief as well. It's very discreet, it's non-invasive. And I find it not only with the hardware, Lief hardware, which vibrates and which you put on your torso, but also with the app. So I really love, personally, I find the user interface of the Lief app very helpful and very well designed, really, because I think it reflects many ways, like the similar design principles maybe of the Lief hardware as well. It's simple, elegant, and effective, and so on. For example, I find the color coding of the different zones very intuitive and motivating also somehow. It's very easy to understand the bar graph which goes up, 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 and down. Very intuitive to understand where your heart rate variability has been on that day. And also, I love the fact actually that the app allows me to be aware of my HRV in real life, as you say. So it's when I have my app open, so I can check my, so it's color coded. But when I close my whole phone, so now it's closed. But if the app is running, it actually pops up and shows the zone just in one line. And that I feel is very beneficial for me because in many of the social situations, for example, maybe I don't want to be rude and have my app open and checking it all the time. But if it's just on my phone's, screen and, I can still see my zone, that is extremely helpful and very discreet. So it's not only the hardware I love, I also I'm loving the Lief app as well.
It's so great to hear that, and I'm curious, have you seen situations where you've gotten feedback that in the moment where it brought your attention to something you weren't aware of?
I get that actually all the time. So as I said, my heart rate variability is quite low, and I think there are many reasons for that probably. But for example, when I try to meditate, meditator, for example, but I find it quite difficult many times. My mind wanders all the time to different places, and when I see my leaf sometimes during meditation as well, I do that all the time. It does reflect, the feeling I was having. Oh, I'm not focusing, and the leaf does show that to me as well. And it's such a gentle manner, really, and it's either vibration or very intuitive user interface on the app. So Lief, in really many cases, it's just I want to tell people just try it. You will gain such valuable insights you probably weren't aware of before that you could gain such insights about yourself and your heart rate variability. It is such a great I don't want to say a tool. It's such a great companion. Maybe such a great thing.
Thank you so much, Eva. That's wonderful to hear, and I think that's been a lot of other people's experience as well as my own. I've learned a lot about myself, and I think have helped get into situations or get out of situations where maybe things would have gone a different way without more self-awareness and mindfulness. It's helpful.
There was one thing I was curious to ask you about. So I have my Leaf. I bought the device, and previously this was an option available, I guess, both for international customers and the US customers. Currently, Leaf is available on monthly subscription basis for the US customers only, I think. And as an international customer myself, I am a little bit sad to see Leaf gone from our international customers availability, and I'm very sure that there's a very good business reason behind it. But is there any maybe future plan for us international customers who are interested in? I actually have received a couple of inquiries myself because I have Leaf on my blog site. Um, for example, somebody from Germany recently asked me if Leaf is available for international customers. Do you have any future plan to open it up again for us outside the US.
We do, and Lief is a very small company. We actually just ran out of inventory. We just
Right.
didn't have enough demand that we were seeing, and so that was the reason that we stopped shipping internationally. So we will start again. And if anybody who's listening to this now and is a follower of your podcast needs a device and is outside the United States, they can reach out to us and we'll help them. We'll help get one.
That's really great to hear because I'm very keen on getting a Lief for my fiance because I listened to your, I think, Google Tech Talk and find fascinating a study you mentioned that about a couple who is staring at each other without speaking for 3 minutes and their heart rate and HRV becoming synchronized. And I have been really keen on trying that between me and my fiance. So I will definitely be getting another Lief for our household as soon as it becomes available.
Absolutely. Let me know how that experiment goes, because I think there's so many interesting things you can do with HRV for yourself, but it's when we communicate that with other people and share it, it becomes even more interesting and helpful and beautiful of an experience. So yeah, would love to see how that plays out.
I will definitely report to you the result of our experiment. So for the US customers, US listeners here, in the US, Lief is also available through prescription or insurance, maybe, as you say in the US, as Lief Rx. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And for our US listeners, can you briefly describe what Lief Rx is?
So the Lief Rx is our version of the Lief that is an FDA medical device. It is available by prescription only, and it is used for a different use case, right? So it is for patients who are prescribed it by their doctor, and that may be people with autonomic issues, maybe people who have chronic physical health or mental health issues they want support with. So that's the Lief Rx. The underlying technology between both the devices are very, very similar. It's more about the extra stuff that you may need if you're a patient that your healthcare provider can offer you, and how the Lief device can work with your healthcare provider. And that's the big differentiator with Lief Rx.
What are your most? So you said you have been and you have been sharing your heart rate variability in different talks I have seen. So what are your most important personal learnings through wearing Lief on yourself?
Gosh, I invented Lief initially to help myself with things like anxiety, and I discovered by wearing it that I have a lot of anxiety during times I didn't know that I was actually experiencing it, and that has been really helpful. So, for example, I found that I can feel a little bit of anxiety before talking to a new person or a new group of people in social situations, and that may have been something that can go under the level of conscious awareness, um, if you're not brought into mindfulness about it. But what I've been able to do, because I get this feedback from the device, is to take a moment to breathe, to use the Lief biofeedback device, follow the vibrations, get myself in a better place, and then just move forward. And that has allowed me to be more open and carefree and less reserved, I think, in social situations. Whereas before, I think my anxiety sometimes would keep me quieter than I wanted to be and not allow me to express myself fully.
But do you want to hear something like really funny here? Because as I said, I researched about you and your previous interviews for this interview we are having today. And when I was watching many of your talks, you give many public talks, and I was thinking you are the coolest guy. You are so cool, and you are so chill and no nervousness at all. It doesn't show. So I was not able to. I was thinking you are so calm and so put together and so cool. So I think that it really, I think it tells that what you are feeling inside and how outsiders might perceive you can be hugely, hugely different.
That's such a key point, and it's part of why mental health is still not fully talked about, and we don't, as a society, as a world, really know how to help each other because we don't know how we're really feeling. We just we have an outside a face that faces the world, and then we have our internal experience. And HRV is really the link between those two things. And that's why when you were talking about getting a Lief with your fiance and kind of experimenting with seeing each other's HRV in real time, we've done some big group biofeedback experiments and big art installations and things where people shared their data in real time. I think that that is a really interesting third wave of HRV that will come after tracking and then biofeedback. In the third wave, I think we'll start to see people sharing their HRV with each other in a more open way. And I imagine what kind of world that will be, where we can be transparent about our feelings, even if they're not always convenient in the moment, and what kind of social dynamics will will emerge from that.
It's super interesting. So you have been in the business of health wearables for a decade now, or maybe a little bit longer. You started with BrainBot and now with Lief Therapeutics. Um, what do you find the most challenging aspects of creating wellness wearables?
Yeah, I think this is different for everybody, but the most challenging aspect for me, and you can probably tell this just by talking to me, is that I'm an inventor, a scientist. I'm somebody who just wanted to create a tool to help people. I'm not a businessman. I'm not somebody who wants to necessarily make the most money in the world. So those two things, they don't go together as well as they really should in creating a health technology that scales very quickly. And so the biggest challenge for me has been bringing on people, advisors, and really people that I trust, that have the best intentions and want to help people, but also are good at business to help grow the company. And that's something that's been a challenge for me that I've been lucky to have good help on.
When I was watching your previous interviews or talks, the feeling I got was you are quite knowledgeable about technology. So you are a neuroscientist in your previous occupation, but you also was quite deep knowledge about sensor technologies, for example. So, but with the business side, it's something you were saying which has been the most challenging aspect of being entrepreneur and CEO of a wearable company.
That has been my experience, certainly. I think that the best part about it, to put a positive frame on it, is we have had so many people reach out, telling us that Lief has made an impact on their life and helped them with their mental health, with their physical health, with their relationships, with their work, and it feels so good to be able to help people with the work that you're doing. And I mean, I know you know this too, but sharing health information through this podcast,
Yes.
it's really wonderful and a blessing when you can do something that you think is helping people as a job.
Yeah. Um, During the same period you have been in the business of the wearables, the industry has grown tremendously. Today we have consumer wearables that measure and track the HRV, brain waves, sleep, activity levels, and much more. And they also come in different form factors and use various sensor technologies. Moreover, the background system or technology, if you like, to process the data collected by those wearables, they have grown or they have advanced so much, especially in the area of AI, artificial intelligence. Are there certain new biometrics or sensor technologies or biofeedback that interest you particularly as a very promising next generation wearable technologies?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. We've seen this trend over the last decade of sensors getting smaller, easier to wear, and more accurate. And so I think that will continue to happen. I have friends in the biohacking community who are maybe more extreme in what they're willing to do to their bodies. So there are people who are implanting sensors into themselves and stimulators and things like that.
Wow.
But I, I think that ultimately what is most natural are non-invasive sensors that teach us something about our body, that give us the awareness that we need to make ourselves better, to not be a crutch, but to be a mirror. And the better we can see ourselves and have that feedback, the more able we are to improve based on
Yeah.
our own abilities, right?
Yes. I think that so heart rate variability, for example, it is not a new biometric or way of intervention, as you mentioned previously. It's actually an old. It's been known to, for example, the scientific communities for quite a while. But I think that with the emergence of better technology, sensor technologies, for example, um, it has been picked up by the wearable industry, and people are now able to measure HRV at home at the convenience of their home. I do know that in Japan, for example, where I originally come from, um, you can actually go to the doctor to get your HRV measured. So people are not aware of wearable like wonderful wearable like Lief. I'm sure you have customers in Japan as well, but I think that the awareness of HRV in Japan still is actually still low, and I do know that some people think that they have to pay the doctor quite a lot of money sometimes to get their HRV snapshot measured, and I think there is a very big difference between a snapshot HRV and continuous HRV. We didn't really discuss that during this podcast with you, but I have tried other HRV monitoring devices before previously, and they are usually a snapshot, right? It's like I compare it usually with the continuous glucose monitoring, and the difference between the finger prick, so you get your glucose at certain time, or wearing a wearable which measures your glucose all the time. The difference is so huge. And the insight you get out of those measurements are so big, because when it is a continuous monitoring which gives you the insight to the real life when you are doing something, not even thinking about your HRV necessarily, but you are still getting the data, and you check your Lief, and oh, my HRV is actually very low, and then you take action. But you miss that if you are just pricking your finger for blood glucose, or taking a snapshot. And especially in the case of HRV, if you there are those snapshot HRV devices, but I do think that when you create it as a special session, then you calm down automatically. Almost you try to breathe inside, and then I think it tells you quite a different story.
That's such a good point. Continuous monitoring is just like a black and white picture and a color picture. It's there's the depth of information you can learn is much higher. And um, yeah, I think that as the tools get better, people will start to see that you need continuous monitoring to really make those insights that are going to make an impact in your life. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Technology is not important. What is important, how we feel, our health, our happiness, and if it can be a means to having better health, then I think that people will start to understand that, to your point, continuous monitoring is really important.
Yes. And where do you predict the wellness wearables are going to in, let's say, 5, 10 years from now?
Gosh, technology moves so fast, right? Thinking about five
Yes.
years. Well, it seems like a lot of the, some guesses, some real guesses. Um, I think batteries will improve. That's kind of like the big issue with wearable devices now, that the batteries are pretty bulky.
Mm.
And so as the sensors get smaller, they'll start to become more and more discrete, more and more invisible. The Leaf device is worn under your clothing, so it is invisible in that sense, but it's still a device that takes up space on the body. You think about a wristband, you think about any wearable device now. How can we shrink that by 2, 3, 5, 10 times? And then what does that mean for a user when you don't need to take it off and recharge? Maybe you stick something on your body, you forget about it for a month or two. So that's a different kind of paradigm. People look at clothing and wireless sensors that are using things like radar and all kinds of other ambient measurements of biometrics, like cameras, et cetera. And I think those will continue to improve as well, and hopefully start to give us really accurate data over the long term.
Yeah. Do you have any exciting future plans, either for yourself or for Leaf, or maybe both?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I mean, I guess this last year has been a lot of excitement at home. I'm an introvert, so it's been an okay time here, and we're lucky that have been able to stay mostly healthy, and my family's been mostly healthy as well. In terms of the future for Leaf, I think we are just getting to the point where people are starting to hear about the tool, the technology. We don't spend any money on advertising, and so it's kind of has only spread by word of mouth up until this point. But
That's amazing, right?
it's been great. But I think it's nice to see us now getting to a point where hopefully we can help more and more people. And I think that's my ultimate goal. When I was a teenager, I struggled with anxiety and depression on my own, and I didn't get good help. And if I can help that person today navigate that situation better, and and if I can help people who want to go from good to even better, that's all that I think I would hope for Leaf over the next few years.
That's fascinating to hear. So one thing which really strikes me about you, Rohan, is you seems to be such a kind, giving person. Your efforts to help people to meditate and become into a better mental health, and I truly, truly admire all of them. What do you do to make sure that your own well-being, to keep you healthy and happy and in a good form in general?
I am lucky to have good friends around me. I have a dog who helps me get out every day and run around.
Oh, I'm a big dog person.
They're helpful for that. Um, and I think I gain a lot of meaning in my life from helping other people. So that recharges me as well.
That's really amazing to hear. Well, we have covered a lot of topics here today, Rohan, but is there anything else you'd like to convey, add to our conversation for our listeners today?
I'd just like to thank you, Eva, for inviting me to this conversation, and for the work that you do to spread knowledge and information about health and wellness and how we can live better lives. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, to hear the depth of your experience and your expertise in these areas, and to understand that um, there are other perspectives that can kind of guide um, the work that we're doing collectively in the biohacking community uh, through conversations like this. And so I just really, really appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you so much for being here with me today. And finally, how can people connect with you and Lief Therapeutics?
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there if anyone is curious to have a conversation. And our website is always the best way to learn more about Lief and to talk to us as well. So you can go to getlief, GETLIEF.com, and start a conversation.
Right. I have contacted, I can just add my personal experience here. I have contacted previously Lief customer care. So there's a chat box on the right side of the website, I think, and you can chat. And they are amazing people. I have to say they are very quick to come back to you, and I think I asked a question which was not so typical question. I don't remember what it was, but it was a little bit about like technical question which probably they had to dig deeper to get answer for me, and they did that very quickly for me and so friendly. And I think it's wonderful, the entire experience with Lief as a company, and that's important for many people, I think, who are interested in wearable like this. So thank you so much for creating the Lief, the device, and also the company, which works so beautifully, and makes people just happy and calm and healthier in their mind. And I think it's such a gift.
Thank you, Eva. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Rohan.
Have a great day.
Have a great day.
This was a podcast from Kenkoax. To follow us, subscribe on the channel Kenkoax on all the places where you can find podcasts.